everyone, get ready for some post-apocalyptic thrills and chills, because today we're going to be counting down the top 5 zombie boys love. That's right, it's time for some Zombie L. Starting off the list at number 5 is The Rotten by Eiju. The rampant spread of a virus has turned most humans into grotesque beings called the Rotten. Amidst the ruins, Xian-ho leads a small group of survivors. His group is thrilled when they meet more survivors with a large stockpile of supplies, until they realize that this new group is shockingly barbaric. By far the most twisted is their leader Juan, who has his eyes set on Xian-ho. This one is written by Eiju, so you know it's going to be crazy. Out of all of her work I've read, The Rotten stands out as being the most graphic, and personally, I'm all for it. If you're a fan of shows like The Walking Dead, you're going to feel right at home with this one. The story revolves around Xian-ho, an uke with very semi vibes. Xian-ho is very standoffish and cold to everyone except Heisu. He puts on a brave front, doing the things that no one else wants to, like killing infected comrades. However, he's secretly a coward, but even so, he has a savageness about him. At one point, he's compared to a wild animal, and I think that seems pretty accurate. He kind of reminds me of a cornered stray cat. You can't get close enough to pet him, but you could give him a plate of food that he'll eat while glaring at you the whole time. From the very beginning, it's obvious that he would do anything to protect his companion, Heisu. It seems like he values his friend's life far above his own. As to why that is, it's not completely clear. This manhwa is still in the early stages at only 31 chapters, so I'm sure the answers will be revealed as more chapters come out. The seme of the story, a man named Wang, is the undisputed leader of a decent-sized militia. He takes an immediate interest in Xian-ho and offers him a deal. No one will touch Heisu or anyone in his group as long as Xian-ho lets Wang fuck him. Yeah, this guy is a creep, but a hot creep nonetheless. For some reason, this lone guy has the ability to strike fear into the hearts of every single member of his group, and there's definitely something not quite right about him. Then there's Heisu, a genuine psychopath masquerading as a cute, defenseless uke. Don't be fooled by those innocent-looking eyes. This twink is a straight-up killer. The interactions between Juan and Xian-ho can be hard to stomach at times, especially that first one, which was just brutal. Right now, it seems like it's more about obsession on Juan's part, but I'm predicting this is going to be one of those stories where over time they get attached to each other. I really like Eiju's distinct art style, and I think The Rotten showcases her best work yet. The characters are incredibly detailed with a more realistic look that makes every expression hit just a little harder. Even though I do think the art style is amazing, I found the Bishonen factor to be a bit mid. Xian-ho isn't really my type, but I think it's because I'm not into guys with glasses. However, Juan is hella sexy. Yes, I say hella. I'm bringing that word back from obscurity. Juan has that evil seme look that I love. The jet black hair slightly covering those psychopathic eyes. Eyes that are filled with malice and killing intent. And I love the heterochromia. If I see a hot anime guy with different colored eyes, 10 out of 10 times that character is going to be my favorite. Coming in at number 4 is Believe My Sign by Shark. Since he first appeared out of the blue, Jin Soo-jiang is always getting on the self-absorbed Yoon-chan's nerves. So-jiang feels the same way towards the socially inept Yoon-chan, who is often harsh. Their unexpected relationship develops as they try to survive together, even though they don't trust one another. In a world that's falling apart, what should you trust? Your past experiences and memories, or your intuition? Believe My Sign is definitely more light than most of the stories on this list. Even though it's about the zombie apocalypse, it spends more time focusing on the characters and their relationships than it does being gory and violent. There are 2 main characters in this one. First off is the seme Kang Yoon-chan. He's a judo champion with a surprising lack of empathy. Once someone outlives their usefulness, Yoon-chan will just abandon them. However, his strength makes keeping him around worth it. Then there's Jin Soo-jiang. Jin is a nice guy, but he's not exactly a fighter, so he's staying with Yoon-chan to better his chances of survival. Jin Soo-jiang has something called hyperthymesia, an ability to recall past events in his life with perfect clarity, a skill that he puts to use memorizing things that he thinks will help him survive. At first, both characters are only using each other for mutual benefit, but over time their bond deepens. The art style in this one is a bit more simplistic. It's one of those few manhwa that's in black and white. And now that I think about it, in most of the black and white manhwa I've read, the eyes are almost always the one thing that are colored in, and Believe My Sign follows this trend. Yoon-chan's eyes are a striking yellow, and Jin Soo-jiang's eyes are a pinkish red. Hi. This is the Bishonen Hunter, only from the future. I tried researching color symbolism in Korean media because I thought that would have been cool to add to the video, but unfortunately the only thing I could find was about the Obang Seat colors, and it wasn't super helpful. So as of now, I don't know if their eye colors are random or if they're meant to symbolize a part of their personality. That being said, this is at least the second work I've read where someone who lacks empathy has yellow eyes, so maybe there's some meaning there. Anyways, back to the video. The Bishonen factor holds up, as both characters are doable. Yoon-chan has that cut athletic build and those piercing eyes, while Jin has more of a cutesy boy next door look. The two of them together make a really good looking couple. Unfortunately, Believe My Sign doesn't have an official English translation, so to support the author, you can buy the original Korean version on Lezen or Bombtoon. To read it, you can use a translator like Sugoi Toolkit. There's also a fan translation made by Mosh Scans, and parts of it are really good. They even use a dick redrawer for a few chapters. However, some chapters have moments that had me shaking my head like, did anyone even proofread this? So it's kind of a mixed bag. But whichever route you choose, please remember to support the author by buying some of the Korean chapters. Now, moving on to number 3 with Rainbow City by Capelli. Capelli. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Amidst a worldwide zombie apocalypse, genius researcher Dr. Hwa Seok's predecessor has been murdered. Now, Major Suhan Kwok has been assigned as his bodyguard, though he certainly has better things to do than protect a delicate, oddball scientist, like getting him into bed, for example. Dr. Seok can tolerate Major Kwok's brash behavior, but with a murderer at large, can he trust him with his life? Rainbow City takes a unique approach. Instead of being told from the perspective of a survivor, as most zombie stories tend to be, it's told from the perspective of someone researching vaccines for the zombie epidemic. It's a fresh and intriguing angle, one I don't think I've ever seen before. Since the focus isn't on survival, the story has the freedom to explore new and exciting directions, making it a standout in the genre. There's also certain elements that mirror real life so perfectly. I can't get into exactly what those are because it would be a huge spoiler, so I'll just say there are some really interesting in-universe conspiracy theories for how the zombie plague started, and I love that aspect of the world building. I can't wait to find out whether or not they're true, but I have a feeling they most definitely are. There are two main characters, the first of which is the genius Dr. Hwa Seok, the head researcher for Rainbow City, also known as Dr. Rock, the nickname Kwok jokingly gives him. He's a strange guy who very rarely shows any emotion, and he's obsessed with collecting rocks. Next is Major Suhong Kwok, an elite soldier, part of the division known as the Immortal Regiment. He's tasked with protecting Dr. Seok, but he's less interested in his duties as a soldier and more interested in trying to seduce the disinterested doctor. Despite his demeanor, there's definitely something not quite right about him. There are a few side characters, my favorites of which are Chae Young Lee and Sang Hun Yang. They're both members of Kwok's regiment, and if I remember correctly, all three of them are the last remaining members. She is a female soldier who's always playfully fighting with Kwok and telling him off, kind of like a little sister. And Sang Hun Yang is a soldier that always pulls his dick out when he's drunk, but then when he sobers up, he can never remember his drunken shenanigans. Back to the two main characters, I really love Seok and Kwok's interactions. Kwok is so brazen and obvious with his flirting, and Seok is so straight-faced and non-reactionary. There's one part where Kwok gives him a phallic-shaped rock as a gift, and Seok just carries it around with him wherever he goes, as if it isn't shaped like a flaccid dick. There's this one scene where he's eating in the cafeteria, and the dick-shaped rock is just chilling on the table. The art style is beautiful, clean, and detailed. You can tell the artist is a pro and has been doing this for a long time. Their style emphasizes storytelling through a mix of polished visuals and highly expressive facial features. Even though this isn't one of those stories with hot guys in every page, I still consider the Bishonen factor to be high in this one. Major Suan Kwok is one sexy soldier. He's strong, good-looking, and assertive. As for Dr. Ha Seok, he's wicked smart, cutesy, and as far as I'm concerned, he could give me a physical anytime. Hi, this is the Bishonen Hunter again, here in post-edit land. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why I said wicked smart. After I recorded that, I struggled for days, wondering if I should leave it in, take it out, re-record it with the Boston accent, but eventually I decided to just live with it. So, you're welcome. Anyways, back to your pre-programmed man-to-man content. Next at number 2 is Dead Man Switch by Gunbam, Koiman, and Issei. Everyone's had that nightmare about being late for a test, right? What about one where the teacher is trying to kill you? Well, that's exactly what Hoyeon Jung finds himself living through, only it's not a dream. Almost everyone has turned into flesh-eating zombies, except for one axe-wielding badass named Youngwon Ki. Calm and collected amidst the chaos, he seems perfectly at ease in this nightmare. This manhwa had me hooked from the very beginning. I love a good mystery, and the mystery in this one is intriguing. Hoyeon is certain he's meeting Youngwon Ki for the first time, yet Youngwon acts like they've known each other for a while. On top of that, Youngwon seems eerily aware of everything that's about to happen. This story is packed with suspense, and the addition of mystery elements makes it all the more incredibly captivating. Dead Man Switch revolves around its two main characters, the previously mentioned Youngwon Ki and Hoyoung Jung. I really love Youngwon's character. He's got everything that makes up a good seme. He's strong, ruthless, confident, sexy, and he couldn't give two shits about anyone who's not as precious Hyunee. Yeah, it's unhealthy, but your girl, the Bishonen Hunter, doesn't give a I just love that obsessive single-mindedness. As for the uke, Hoyoung Jung, he's a very amicable guy who tends to put the needs of others ahead of his own and acts like nothing bothers him. Though, when Youngwon calls him out for being fake, it sparks a turning point for his character, and he slowly begins to change. While he's still a caring and empathetic guy, he grows stronger, more resilient, and becomes less of a pushover. I love the interactions between the two main characters. Yeah, the whole I know you, but I'm not going to tell you how I know you, and I'm going to get mad at you for not remembering. That whole shtick has been done before, sure, but I'm really liking the way Youngwon pulls it off. He comes off just the right amount of psycho, and I like the way Hoyeon reacts to it. There's been plenty of times where he'll say things that I, as the audience, am thinking. The artwork in Dead Man Switch is a good blend of intensity and emotion, capturing the horror of a zombie apocalypse while weaving in the emotional boys' love story at a decent pace. The character designs are detailed and expressive, allowing the emotions to properly shine through. In my opinion, Youngwon carries the entire Bishonen factor on his strong, sexy shoulders. Hoyeon's attractive, but he's a bit weak for my taste. I'm not usually into the twinks, with a few rare exceptions. Cough Lurbexa, cough Yoonbum. That being said, just because he doesn't get my non-existent dick hard doesn't mean I don't like seeing him and Youngwon in compromising situations. Now, before we get to our number 1 pick, I just want to bring up an honorable mention. Boys of the Dead. I was going to include it on this list, but I think I'll save it for when I do a horror list. Anyways, on to number 1, Radio Storm by Team S&S. In a world devastated by war and a deadly plague, Sak is the possessor of a core, though his core's power is considered subpar by the standards of the research facility known as the Academy. When the plague breaches the school's walls, turning its victims into mindless attackers, Sak is forced to flee. Guided by his upperclassman Granger's advice, he sets out to find his caller, the one person who can amplify his abilities and ensure his survival. Upon finding his caller, Sak is overwhelmed by a deep affection, but his feelings are one-sided as his caller wants nothing to do with him. Despite this, the two must journey together, risking everything to survive in a world where both their lives hang by a thread. I'll admit, I had a hard time choosing between this and Dead Man Switch for the top spot, but after a lot of contemplation, I decided on Radio Storm because of its brilliantly crafted story. It's original, incredibly well written, and packed with plot twists and suspense that kept me hooked from start to finish. Every side character you come across in this manhwa is extremely sus, and it's very difficult to figure out whether or not they have ulterior motives. But for now, I'll just go over the two most important characters. First up is Sak. Sak isn't your typical protagonist. He's cold and seemingly unempathetic. He doesn't have any attachments to his family, and because other people find him strange, he's spent his life ostracized from those around him. When he's accepted into the academy, it seems like a fresh start. However, he's constantly bullied and harassed for having what others see as a useless ability. His power, he's able to emit a plant-like scent. What his classmates don't know is that he also has an incredibly sharp sense of smell, a skill that may be more valuable than anyone realizes. Then there's Lima, a hardened warrior who's been fighting to survive since childhood. Raised as a child soldier, Lima has learned that in a world this cruel, survival is all that matters, because no matter how hellish life gets, it's still better than being dead. And I have to say, I really agree with that sentiment. Named after the L in the NATO phonetic alphabet, Lima is as ruthless as they come, a survivor through and through, willing to do whatever it takes to see another day. The romance in Radio Storm starts off as very one-sided. When they first meet, Lima has zero trust in Sack. He sees him as weak, someone whom Lima can easily manipulate and take advantage of. But eventually something shifts. Sack's overwhelming devotion begins to wear Lima down. His icy demeanor begins to crack, and he starts to warm up to Zack, returning his affections. Side note, in my last video I mentioned how black and white manhwa is a bit of a rarity, and of course 2 of the 5 on my list just happen to be black and white, which is so weird, because 90% of the manhwa I read is in color. So yeah, it's kind of a weird coincidence. The artwork in Radio Storm is outstanding. The characters are drawn with such sharp detail, so it's easy to feel their emotions just by looking at their expressions. Like most black and white manhwa, the artist uses splashes of color here and there to emphasize certain scenes and emotions. Whether it's the subtle green glow of Sack's core or the striking purple hue of Lima's eyes, these touches of color are used masterfully, adding depth and intensity to the storytelling. Another great thing about the artwork is the fact that it's uncut. Well, sometimes it's uncut. I'm not sure why they did it that way. Sometimes dicks are drawn with great care and detail, and other times it's just an outline. But at least there are no lightsabers in this one, so that's always a plus. Those particular scenes are meticulously drawn, and you can really feel the connection between the two characters. Even though this story only has a handful of characters, the Bishonen factor is high, and that's entirely due to Lima. Let's be real, my guy is hella doable. I love a man who looks like he's been through hell and lived to tell the tale, and Lima embodies that perfectly. With his battle-worn demeanor and that distant, haunted look in his eyes, he exudes strength and resilience. I have a soft spot for the tough militant archetype, and Lima absolutely nails it. So if you haven't heard of Radio Storm, hopefully I've convinced you to give it a try. There are so many moments that are packed with emotional weight, and it's one of those stories that'll stick with you long after you read it. The series is wrapping up, and by the time this video comes out, it'll likely be done, so now is the perfect time to check it out. And that's gonna be it for my top 5 zombie boys love. Are there any zombie BLs you thought should have made the list? What are some of the ones you're planning on reading? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing, and helping to build the Bishonen Hunter army.